Hello there, everybody. Wobble Plays here with 3 dads and a console. I got my hands on the new Ubisoft game, Star Wars Outlaws, with an exclusive early session, and I cannot wait to tell you about what I played. Thank you to Ubisoft for this opportunity. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and being able to join a new story in my favorite setting of the original trilogy, I can't wait to see where this goes. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience and some of the different aspects, characters, gameplay, world building that I saw during this preview. Now, I'm very selective with my single player games these days, since as a parent, my free time is kind of limited. But Outlaws has been a game that has been on my radar ever since it was announced, and I was curious how it would stack up against other single player Star Wars titles. I really enjoyed my time with it and what I was able to see. Now, you play a scoundrel named Kay Vess, and she is a pet alien dog thing, Nyx, who's trying to find her way in the galaxy by stealing, lying, sneaking, and of course, shooting.
Let me see some identification.
Yeah, sure.
You're Torin Valerio Nupp?
That's me.
All right, move along.
You have the opportunity to shape your game by aligning with various factions. Factions who dislike you will kick you off their turf immediately. But if you gain favor with a faction, you will have access to different areas and be able to leverage these alliances. Throughout the story, you'll be faced with different decisions during missions to align or betray factions, and there's an impact to each decision. I didn't get to see too much of the main story, but it sounds like a lot of it is centered around your spaceship, and I'll leave it at that. I was a big fan of the world building in this session. I got to see 3 different types of worlds. There was the lush planet Tashara, where I spent most of my time, the frozen world Kijimi, and you got to board an Imperial starship. Tashara was where I spent the most time exploring the main storyline, but there was a vast, huge planet to explore. You could stop at random locations to see what was going on in different buildings, see if there's anything to lockpick. You could get chased by local gangs and sometimes face them on foot because you can't drive. And there are also just these random occurrences happening, intercepted communications. It was really neat. And also when you get to the city, it's kind of big. There's various stores, there's different characters talking. It's just really a lot to get into. You learn Tashara is not only home to local factions, but it has a huge empire presence as well. You find that the underworld has a strong upper hand on the Imperials, and where they're able to bend the law due to their power and influence. And I loved seeing the interaction with stormtroopers or Imperial officers, not just with Kay, but with the other characters in the world as well. It felt very busy with life, and that you were stepping in and truly entering their world. I feel like a lot of times open world games where they create a city, it just feels kind of flat. And this didn't seem like it. The characters were all doing something. You could hear all these different conversations. It was just really cool to get into, especially as a Star Wars fan. You could spend time at a bar and listening to the stories of the other NPCs, or you could be a true degenerate and gamble on the equivalent of space horse racing. I thought that was really fun, and I actually found a clue where the race was fixed, so I went all in on that next race on the guaranteed winner, and it worked out pretty well for me. There's actually a lot of gambling on Tashara, so get ready, my fellow degenerates. My favorite world was sneaking onto the Imperial starship. It has the sterile vibe of the movies, especially going from like this outdoor world like Tashara, and then immediately going into this just cold spaceship environment. When you get commanded to board the ship, you claim to be one of the factions, and you have to sneak around and delete data that would frame a rival. I love the pacing of this and the puzzles and just the panic of being surrounded at all times. There's also a fair amount of platforming, which I thought was really fun, and different ways to go about completing the objectives. There's also a linear portion in what I saw as well, but there's also a lot of opportunity to fight stormtroopers and use your blaster, pick up additional weapons, and it just was a really good opportunity to check out the gunplay. I really enjoyed playing as Kay. I never at once thought she felt overpowered at any point, and if anything, she felt like the enemies were putting up a huge fight, which made it seem much more realistic playing as a scoundrel versus a Jedi or a different character. I thought the voice acting was great, and the dialogue was really clever and funny. I felt it fit the original trilogy theme, where some parts would be more serious and others were pretty slapstick.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you were one of them.
Huh?
I also noticed small details on Kay where her hair would blow in the wind if you were outside. And you can also get materials in order to craft different outfits. I don't know if those outfits have any stat buffs or if it's just cosmetic, but I just like that approach to getting different skins. The voices I heard in the world were great all around, with the Empire obviously having a British accent, even though it's space and there is no Britain, and aliens having a variety of different voices, some in English, which threw me off in the beginning, but others were in their native language. And main characters each have fleshed out personalities that even in the short time where I met them, I was really excited to see where these different relationships lead. For gameplay, you have your main quest that you can follow, but obviously it's a Ubisoft game, so expect to be sidetracked. You also have different ways to approach your objectives. Do you purchase an invite in order to meet the crime boss, or do you sneak into his hideout? It gives you different options if you want to avoid combat, or if you feel you would be overpowered. I thought the gunplay, as mentioned before, it's fine. It's exactly what's needed in order to move the story along and in order to be a part of that world. But my favorite part of combat is using your pet Nyx to distract or take on an enemy, and then Kay can either blast them or melee them. It's the flexibility to choose the combat that you best enjoy or that suits a situation that I really liked. Nyx can also interact with the world to sabotage alarms, set distraction, release vents to help you camouflage. It's really creative. And there's a lot of sneaking around, which some people might find repetitive. Some of these side tunnels take you away from like the really fleshed out main areas, but I didn't mind the challenge. Lockpicking was also really neat. It's a rhythm-based mechanic, which I thought was really clever. But if you're in combat, it kind of takes away from the action. Also, there's a mission that you play in space, and I did not enjoy the space combat. It felt very rigid, and you didn't need to move around a lot to take out enemies. I also found myself slamming into debris a lot, and maybe that's a skill issue, but you fly in these contained spaces, so it's not open world in space, but there's still an opportunity to explore a bit, gain resources, and attack other ships if you choose. So I think there are definitely people who will have a lot of fun with it. For me, I found it a little challenging, but maybe I just need a little bit more practice. Overall, Star Wars Outlaws definitely nails the feel of being just a traveler scoundrel trying to find your way in the galaxy. There's going to be a lot of familiar sights, different aliens and droids you might recognize, but there's really a lot that you don't see in the movies. There's still this crazy style of Star Wars story, mixed with Ubisoft flair of trying to complete your main objective, but then you get wrapped up in like this separate mess in order to move forward. But that just adds to the charm.
Hank, what she owe you credits to? Good luck.
Why? What happened?
Well, the Ashiga finally caught her. Got a couple million credits to pay off in the factory. At her age, with a debt like that, she's in there for life.
Huh. That complicates things.
Since the setting is during the original trilogy, I'm really excited to see how they integrate what we know and love with the unique story that's in the same setting, and hopefully we see some fan favorites cross paths. Are you looking forward to Star Wars Outlaws? Let me know in the comments below. Again, another big thank you to Ubisoft. And for more awesome video game content, make sure to subscribe to our channel at 3 Dads and a Console. May the Force be with you when Star Wars Outlaws releases on August 30th, 2024.